Okay, I'm with Bill Coates today from Offshore Risk Management. Thanks for spending time with us at the Catamaran site, Bill. Can you tell me a little bit about who you are and what offshore risk management is?
All right. Yes, my name is Bill Coates. I am a marine and aviation insurance broker. I've been in the business since 1972, so it's a long time, and I've seen a lot of very, very interesting things. Our business was established at that time, and we tend to not turn away very many risks. We get thousands of applications a year. And generally speaking, we can cover pretty much any boat, anywhere, anytime. And we have had clients on every continent, including Antarctica. So we enjoy the business, and the more complex the risk, the better it is for us to deal with.
Well, then you sound fairly ideal for catamarans because they are notoriously hard to insure these days, it seems like, especially if you've got new owners. So, can you talk a little bit about what's happening in the insurance market these days, why people are running into troubles, and what some of the misconceptions are?
Well, I think the first misconceptions are that catamarans are harder to insure than monohulls. We have not found that. As a matter of fact, for example, in the hurricane area, which is essentially the Caribbean from the Tropic of Cancer south to about the bottom of Grenada or the top of Grenada, those boats in the off season are usually hauled out and they don't topple because they are stable on the ground. And we have found there's the built-in safety of having two hulls, and if one is flooded, this gives the backup of having an additional one. We had a claim like that one time in the Mona Passage, and one hull was completely submerged, and we were able to rescue the people because the other hull kept them afloat. So we haven't really run into that, and it doesn't matter. We do boats worldwide, like I said, and catamarans are welcome to our insurers just as much as any other boat.
So, why are people under the misconception or correct conception that it's more difficult and more expensive to get insurance right now?
Well, I monitor, we have a presence on Facebook, and a couple of times a week I go through the posts that people put down, and I see that, oh, you can't get it. Or last year it was $10, and now this year's it's $35, which that does happen. But generally speaking, it's people that are not really well informed, or they're they're just not looking in the right place. There are a number of companies, say in the US, that will write boats, particularly catamarans or monohulls, whilst they're in the US or in the US waters. But once they venture further afield, then they don't want to touch those. And that could be then not a good experience for insurance buyers because they're finding, where do I go? Who do I look for? I'll call Lloyd's, and that sort of thing. And that does not necessarily give them a good experience. So, of course, blowing our own horn, if they go to offshorerisk.com, we'll tell them pretty quickly what the situation is and whether we can insure them. And 95% of the time, we are able to generate a quote for people that apply online.
So when we're getting a quote, what is there a rule of thumb for pricing these days, or is there any kind of ballpark that you can sort of give people an idea what they should be considering?
No. Well, and I'll tell you why. There's two factors. First of all, I have a lot of very able ladies in the office, and they give me stern looks and call me William instead of Bill when I talk to clients about rates. So we just know we cannot possibly guess. We don't do that because what happens is we don't have a lot of the information that is necessary just talking to somebody over the phone. And your boat might be the nicest boat in the world, but there's things that are important to underwriters that you may not think are important. And that's why we just can't guess. And generally speaking, we can get quote, I will say at the most at a week, but generally speaking, we have it in 3 or 4 days. So that way, if we quote, we're able to bind a risk, and it's not guessing. And hey, you know, when I spoke to you in August, you told me it was going to be this much, and now it's twice as much. Well,
Right.
there you go.
Yes. So tell me how people can best prepare to come to you and look at what sort of insurance options they have. What should they be doing? Should they be making a resume? What should they be taking classes? What are some of the ways to get the best rate?
Okay, well, there are a number of factors that are involved, and I'll address each one of those. The first thing is when we collect the information on our website, we have absolutely everything that we need to give a firm quotation. Because we ask, for example, what's your claims history? What is your history with experience? How much do you want to insure the boat for? How much are you paying for it? Do you have a survey or you do not have a survey? Are you going to get a survey? Where are you going to be navigating? Is there going to be more than one person on board with you that is experienced? And it's not dreary or onerous to fill this thing out, but it is important for us because lots of times we have seen there's like a little cheat sheet, and an agent will say, "Yeah, just give us this little bit of information," and then they have a guesstimate, and then when the time comes, it's, well, oh yeah, but you know, you had a conviction in 1976 because you smoked some dope. And some people, some underwriters, if you've ever had a criminal conviction, they're just not interested. And unfortunately, that haunts those people. But we have other markets that will be able to deal with that. The other thing is experience is an important thing. And whilst we see people that will come to us and say, yes, okay, I've taken the ASA course or other courses, this is good. But if they took it 15 or 20 years ago, that does not add to their experience because presumably since then they have used a boat and gone maybe renting a boat in the BVI or New Zealand or something like that. But if they have if they're new to boating, sailing, or motoring, then if it's fairly recent training that they've had and experience fairly recently for these new boaters, that helps a whole lot because they know what the pointy end is called and they have some experience to be able to say, yes, I've done this. We suggest to people, and I see them on the Facebook pages, and lots of people will say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to sail the Caribbean and so on. And I sailed on my grandfather's boat, you know, when I was a kid in Lake of the Ozarks. So what we suggest to these people is that they go to yacht clubs or go to marinas and offer to crew on the weekends for people, and then they can just get the feel of what it's all about, what the lines are for, what the controls do, and what the sails do, the different sizes. So this is all very good, and it can be added to, yes, I've done these types of jobs on a boat. Does that help you?
Yeah, that's great. So this sort of sounds like there's things you should do before purchasing a boat, that reaching out when you're in the thinking stages might make some sense. Is that accurate?
Yes, and we have probably 10 to 15% of our clients will come and say, I haven't bought the boat, but I'm looking at it. I need to know how much it's going to cost me to insure the boat, or what should I do? And again, we say, go to our website, tell us what the boat that you're looking at. And if you're looking at 2 or 3, give us the information on one. And then in the remarks, say, I've got a couple of other ones I'm looking at. Can you give me a quote on those? And that will trigger a phone call from our office. And we'll say, okay, fine. So this one, number one here, whatever, a Fontaine Peugeot. I want to, that's like top of my list. So we'll quote that. And then if the boats and the makes are similar, then we'll be able to say, okay, it should be around this kind of money for the same thing. And that's not really a ballpark because we already have a guideline from what kind of a boat you think you're going to have. And we're going to be pretty accurate. The quotes that we give, generally speaking, are good for 30 days. So if you got a quote in August, like I said, and in February you say, well, you gave me this quote then, what's wrong? It's because the market is in flux. Insurers come into the marine market and then they leave, or they say, okay, we're not going to do boats in such and such an area anymore, or we're going to exclude windstorm or something like that. So ask as many times as you want. Give us an idea of what you're looking for if you have not got an actual boat. But it helps if you have an actual boat as opposed to, well, I think it's going to be this long and I think it's going to have one spar and it's got to be a multi-hull and it should have 2 engines inboard of X. That really is not the same as having a boat that you've looked at and you're really interested in, because then you can give us the specifics for that boat.
So it sounds like age and the brand of catamaran and the condition, those are all going to affect the quote. Is that correct?
Yes, older boats are more expensive to repair. Where you are operating is more expensive to get repairs, because we look at the submission as you're going to have a claim. Not like, oh, you're going to have a claim, but it's more like practical reasons for you have the insurance is if you have a claim, you want somebody that's going to be able to get that boat repaired or underway or move to a repair yard if it's far away. We had one in the Caribbean and ended up, we took it to Malta because that was the only place they could fix this boat. So yes, age is a big factor. Of course, if you have a boat that was built in the 80s, it's going to be looked at differently than if one that was built last month. And for obvious reasons, and upgrades and stuff like that are important. So yes, age, value, experience of the operators, and basically where you're going to be operating are key factors.
Got it. So when comparing quotes, assuming that people are going to get more than one quote, comparing insurance quotes can be really difficult. What is your role in helping people make sense of these quotes?
Well, we're going to tell them, don't pay attention to those other guys. You want to come with us.
Well,
but realistically, what we do is when we present a quotation, we use the same format every time.
okay.
And then it's easy to look and see. And we will then have specific questions like, okay, what's the difference between this insurer and that insurer? And sometimes they end up talking to me, or the ladies in the office know the answers depending on what the questions are.
Okay. So there's language in insurance documents that can be confusing. So do you guys use a plain language so people know whether they're getting like replacement value or those kinds of questions that people often don't quite understand what they're getting?
Okay. Marine insurance does not lend itself to plain language policies, and they don't do it deliberately to be obscure, but there's a lot of words in a marine policy that you don't find in a homeowner's or a flood policy or a car policy or even an airplane policy. So what will happen is we encourage the people to get a copy of the policy language, and we'll send it to you. Generally, we ask the clients to ask us for a copy of the policy, because if we're sending you a quote and you're getting it on your phone and you get a policy on your phone, you're not going to like us. We get people like that, oh, hey, I'm driving and I'm trying to look at this. So we tell them to pull over anyway. But generally speaking, we encourage them to take a look at it. And then if they have specific questions, to call. And they'll probably end up talking to me or, again, one of the ladies in the office, depending on the complexity. And we always encourage people to play what if. What if this happens? What if that happens? What do I do? Because that's the time that you need to know, not when your boat is sinking and who do I call? Oh, I'm insured with Lloyd's. I'll call them. You're not going to get anybody named Lloyd there. And so we always, again, take the approach that if you're taking insurance with us, we have to be prepared now for a quote that you're going to have in the future. So they can call and discuss the policy language anytime. We don't use double talk. And generally speaking, if there are questions, we put the answers in writing after we've discussed it with the client.
Got it. So, when it comes to hurricane season and special regional requirements and that sort of thing, is that something you talk people through on how to prepare in advance or do?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. On our website, there are hurricane preparedness tips. In addition to that, if we know that they're going to be in a storm area, we get them to provide us with what they plan to do when their boat is in that area. So that falls into two different categories. One is they're absent and they're in Iowa and their boat's in Grenada or St. Martin. And we get them to put in writing, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Now, this is for two reasons. Number one, the automatic thing is, so they can get out of a claim. But that's actually not correct. We would rather have a claim paid than denied. But in a hurricane preparedness plan, and we have those forms available if someone needs to have a look to see what they mean, it does allow them to say, well, if there's a storm, this is what I'm going to do. And if they say, yeah, I'm going to have two lines that go down to a mooring, and I should be fine because they said they put that mooring in and it's been there for years. So what we will do is we will look at it, or we'll have an underwriter look at it, and they'll say, well, wait a minute, what about chafe gear? And we encourage people, this is what you need to do to protect your boat on a mooring or in a dock. Are you beside another boat, or is the other boat on the other side of a dock? So there is that. If they're with their boat, that's not the same as if they're not with their boat. If they're not with their boat and their boat is strapped down to the ground and all the sails and that good stuff is taken off and stored below or in a building, that's much easier to say, okay, this boat isn't going to go anywhere. When a storm is coming, it's there, and we know what the position is going to be. And if there's something that we know, look, we've had claims because of such and such, like not leaving a garboard plug out so that if water gets in the boat, it drains out. We'll say to them, we have found this works better to protect your boat. So if they're using their boat and they don't know where they're going to be, then we get a hurricane plan from them that says, okay, let's pretend that you're going to be someplace. And what would you do? And either I'll run from the storm, or I'll go in a hurricane hole, or I'll find some mangroves or something like that. We help
Great.
them do all that
That
stuff.
sounds like you're a very hands-on company. So we'll finish up with just final question. Is there anything else, Bill, that you think people should know before they go into marine insurance shopping?
Well, certainly we can help them. And it's important to remember you get what you pay for, even in insurance. So liability only if they need it because they can't afford or do not care to insure their boat, that's available. Marine is requirement if you're going to be in there, whether it's overnight or for an extended stay. Just you get what you pay for, and speak to somebody that speaks the language of boaters, not someone that is, yeah, I insured 5 boats in my lifetime.
Right, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much, Bill. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us.